Good morning. It's Ladena Bough from Stockton, Missouri. And my guest this morning is Lynn Morris. If you follow Axe Television, you have a show, Changing Times,
Yes, I
correct?
do. Yes, I do.
And what's Changing Times about, basically?
Well, I tell you what, I've got a great co-host, a young lady, Don Blackard. Her dad is Alvin Blackard, and he was the lead pastor for many, many years at the North Side Assembly of God in Springfield.
Mhm.
And now his son is kind of taken over, and so Alvin still is preaching, but his son is kind of taking over the
Mhm.
place. Alvin's going to be trying to retire. I don't think you ever retire if you're a
No,
pastor.
no, you can't ever retire.
But no, so she's a great co-host and a great addition to our show, and then we have a sub host that's Louis Michael. He's also a sponsor, and he's an Elvis impersonator, probably the best there is, and he's also a realtor. But our show, Changing Times, when I worked with Jim Whining on this show, we were talking about what could we name the show. Well, we came up with Changing Times because we are truly in the midst of fast changing times, and a
Oh,
lot
we
of
are.
and Ladina, a lot of it is just not good,
No.
not very good. We just are talking about the marriage law that Congress passed yesterday. You know what? That's Congress's law, but that's not your law.
No.
That's not my law,
It's not my law.
and
It's
it's
not what God wanted.
no, it's not God's law. And so it's just another example of the deterioration of our country.
Right.
But Changing Times is a show we talk about social issues, social causes, but I refuse to talk about anything in a negative light.
Right.
So if we don't have positive solutions and a positive show, we've been doing this now for 2 years, we don't do it. So we
Mhm.
don't talk politics a lot, but when we do, we keep it in a positive vein and we have positive solutions. There's
Mhm.
always positive solutions to any issue. You just have to work on it. Some people just want to be negative. And
Mhm.
I tell people, Adina, on our show many times, if you want negativity, watch TV, listen to the radio, read the newspaper. There's a lot of negativity out there. So we want to try to have our show a positive show.
Yeah. We need a more positivity in this world. It's entirely too hateful these
Right.
days.
There's no kindness. I had a pharmacy chain for 43 years, 26 stores, and I did a TV ad one time, and I sell drugs when I was in my pharmacy business, but kindness is the best medicine in the
Correct.
world. And I would say reach out today and do something kind for someone today. That was part of my TV ad. And I had people from all over the area, Southwest Missouri down into Arkansas, and everybody that was Joplin, everybody that was watching TV,
Mhm.
Channel 3 or Channel 10, our two big networks, thought, boy, that's kindness. This is a good ad. And
Right.
it's a really good ad, but it was a really good thing to live by. And so, but we're kind of losing that today.
Yeah, it seems awfully violent every time. It makes me want to stay in my house, okay?
Yeah, yeah. Well, things have changed. I've often said that I believe I've lived in the best times, the best years that
Mhm.
anyone could ever live, and I think you have too. When I was a kid growing up, and I was still in grade school and junior high school, so maybe from the fourth, fifth grade on, I would take a South 2 national bus in Springfield, and I would go down for a nickel. It cost me a nickel, and I would go all the way down to the square. I could go to the YMCA Boys Club. I used to box.
Mhm.
I used to box. I boxed for several years, and for a nickel. And then for another, and I could go to the Boys Club. I could swim. I could play basketball. I could do all those things and spend the day.
Mhm.
No one ever bothered me while I was on that bus.
Yep.
But you couldn't send a little boy or a little girl on a bus by themselves anywhere in not just Southwest Missouri, but the entire country. We now have a environment that's not safe,
Mhm.
and parents would never send their kids. But my parents, they loved me, but they didn't have to worry
Yeah.
because there wasn't anybody out there. I don't know where those predators were,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't there. So when I'd get through, I'd go over to Kresge's on the square in Springfield, and I would have a nickel or a dime's worth of those fresh orange slices.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be riding the bus back for another nickel, so I only spent about 20 cents
Mm-hmm.
for that day, and nobody ever bothered me, not
Yeah.
one time.
I have two autistic grandchildren, and my daughter doesn't even let them ride a school bus
No,
because
there's a lot of bullying
there's
going
a
on
lot
in
of
school.
violence
Yeah,
there and too much
yeah,
bullying.
yeah.
Both of the children have been bullied over the years, but my grandson probably the worst. He's 10, and it's like we never treated people that way when I was growing up.
Right.
We had lots of special needs children in the schools and so forth, and maybe they were in a different classroom back then. They started putting them in the same classroom when my children were smaller, but people didn't pick on them and they didn't
No,
abuse them the way they do now. And I don't want my grandchildren on public transportation anywhere.
no, it's really an issue. And when I was growing up and going to school in Springfield, you're right. I only remember two kids being picked on when I got to high school. I don't remember any kid being picked on in junior high school, and that didn't last too long because I was one of the ones that defended those kids. You couldn't do this today. I wouldn't tell my grandkids to do this; they'd get in trouble. But because I boxed and I wore real thick glasses,
Hmm.
I mean, today the glasses I have would be real thick, but we got modern technology and we can make them extremely thin. So my glasses don't look like I'm so blind. But people used to make fun of me. Make
Hmm.
fun of me. I had big old black glasses that were broken probably 6 or 8 places because I played football, I played basketball as a kid, just wrestling with my brother. So I was always somehow
They're
breaking my
always
glasses.
taped together
Yeah,
somewhere, right?
with white
Uh-huh.
tape.
White tape.
Yeah, and so black frames with white tape, probably 5 or 6 places on my glasses. And my mom and dad didn't have money to buy another pair of glasses every time I broke them.
Right.
Okay. So the only time I would get a new pair of glasses is when I'd go back to the doctor for another eye exam, and I would need new lenses, even thicker lenses, and they would buy me frames at that time. But in between, it didn't matter where you broke them; you just
Hmm.
had to tape them up. And people would make fun of me. They'd call me four eyes and stuff like that. And but I stopped that because you hit them in the nose one time, and I didn't get in trouble. Uh, and in gym class a couple of times, people got pretty smart. Those kids were pretty smart back then. You don't make fun of people that's going to stop it.
Right.
And so, yeah, today I'm thinking, well, man, that sounds pretty severe. But no, I wouldn't want to tell my kids or my grandkids that. I was on the school board at Ozark uh, for 6 years, and I was going to say back then, we didn't have bullying on the buses. We didn't have this problems that we have today.
Hmm.
But part of it is parents, the lack of parenting, I think,
I think
because
so too.
because the parents that I knew growing up, and as we were parents and the people we were in, kids they learned from home. You don't pick on other kids, and
Hmm.
if you see somebody being picked on, you go to their defense.
Hmm.
You go to their defense. You stop it, so we never. I don't remember one time in 6 years we ever had an incident that was brought to us in front of the school board that had to do with bullying.
Hmm.
They may have been going on, but it must have been very, very little compared to what we have today.
Yeah.
Because today you can hear about it every day. I have parents every day tell me about, and I'm talking about the best schools in the state. Ozark, Nixa, some of the schools in Southwest Missouri are rated as some of the very top schools in the state of Missouri.
Hmm.
But we still have problems.
I know my uh, oldest granddaughter, she's 19 now, only had one incident of abuse on the bus for her, but she's perfectly healthy young woman. She's amazing.
Mhm.
And she put a stop to it herself that day. But, you know, we don't even put the younger ones on a bus.
Yeah.
It's not safe for them. Doesn't matter where they're at.
Right, right. Well, and even though I'm still a great supporter of public schools,
Mm-hmm.
because not every child can go to a private school.
Right.
Not every child can go to a Christian school. Not every child gets to be so lucky as to be homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of homeschool parents. I see a lot of kids that have graduated from homeschooling. And let me tell you what, they're very sharp kids,
They are.
and they know the Bible, they know real history. They don't know made up history or changed history.
Mm-hmm.
They're not indoctrinated in any way, other than the fact that it pays to be patriotic and to be a Christian. And so those are good things as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And so that's why I really like homeschooling, and that's why it's grown so much. It's getting to be a bigger number all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's co-ops and all kinds of things where if you're not comfortable maybe teaching chemistry, because I'm a pharmacist and I had a lot of science background, but if your mom wasn't able to teach chemistry because she didn't understand it, co-op would bring another mom in or dad in,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of traded and helped your specialty. So different parents have different specialties, but the kids are always a good product. And so I'm wanting to improve public schools. I want them to be back like they were when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and teach us the right things and stuff like that. Even cursive writing. Can you believe that most kids today, when they graduate, they don't even know how to write their name in cursive?
Yep. And it disturbs me so much because if you can't read cursive, you can't even read the founding documents of this nation.
Well, Ladena, I'm glad you said that, because as a state rep, during the 8 years I was a state rep, one of the gentlemen that I knew, he was a granddad, and there was a winter day, cold winter day, and he had 3 grandkids, and he decided to get out some old books
Mm-hmm.
and show them the Constitution, and show them family things and contracts and stuff, and everything was signed by cursive.
Mm-hmm.
And they could not read. Those 3 grandkids couldn't read anything that was in cursive.
Right.
And it really hurt him. It disappointed him that he wasn't really able to get across what his family and what other people had done to make our country where it was.
Yeah. And if they want to teach lies in the school, how are they going to be able to read the Constitution to figure out what it's really supposed to be?
Right. So, every year for several years now, I don't know how many, 8 or 10 years, I've taught a government class, free government class at the libraries in Christian County. And so now we have 4 libraries. And so I'll be teaching all 4 libraries next year. But I teach, I was doing state government because I was in state government, but now I do county government because I'm in county government. But I now do the Constitution as a separate course, and founding documents, and then I do the state and county government. And so I try to I invite the parents and the grandparents to sit behind the kids, because I've had the older folks come up to me after a class and they say, "I'm sure glad I came because I learned probably more than my grandson did." But the good news was, I tried to tell them, I said, "Well, you had to bring those kids, you had to drive those kids. So don't just leave them
Right.
and go run some errand. Stay there and see what they're hearing, and make sure you approve what I'm saying, and learn with them, because you can talk to them after that and reinforce what we just talked about. And that's still process of learning."
I did get in trouble with my oldest granddaughter, though, one time. Well, I got her in trouble because she was doing a paper on government, and they wanted her to write what they had taught her. And she called me and asked me to read it and everything. And I wrote her back and I said, "Well, I don't care if this is what they're teaching you. I want to tell you the truth."
Yeah.
So I made her rewrite her paper with truth instead of what they were teaching. It's like, We both got in trouble.
Well, in 2012, thinking back, Ladena, in 2012, when I first won my state rep race, it was that winter that I saw an advertisement. Missouri State had a course at night. I was looking at night courses. I mean, I've always continued to learn. I have my master's degree in healthcare administration, and I just always like to learn and study. I try to teach some of my grandkids. I got 6 grandkids, and a couple of them look at me like, "No, we quit learning after we get out of school." I said, "No, you learn until you last day on earth. I mean, you're going to continue to learn. You're going to continue to study courses, make yourself better, whatever job you're working at. You're always going to learn." But in 2012, I decided, my daughter had graduated from Missouri State, and she had 2 degrees. I was in pre-pharmacy on an athletic scholarship. I knew I was going to University of Missouri pharmacy school, but I wanted to take a night course, and I saw a course that said Religions of the World.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's kind of interesting. So I think I was 62 or 63 at that time. And I signed up for that class.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mandy found out right away somehow. Maybe I told her, I don't know. But one of my daughters, she said, "Dad, you can't take that course." And I said, I thought she meant I was too old.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "No, Mandy, you can take it for credit, or you can just take it for your own benefit." But I said, I'm not questioning my faith,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to know why these people, all these religions, I want to learn about all these religions in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know that. And she goes, "No, you can't do it." And I finally got out of her. She said, "Well, Dad, I didn't want to tell you, but when I was there, I took the class, and you've got the same professor. So he's going to teach your class."
Mm-hmm.
And he's a doctor in religious studies. But she finally told the truth. The truth was, this man doesn't believe in God. So he's at Missouri State, not believing in God.
Mm-hmm.
And on the very first night of class, Mandy says, he's going to tell you that there is no God. And she said, "Where you will be sitting? Where do you sit?" I said, "On the front row."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Well, what are you going to do when he says that?" And I said, "I'm going to stand up. I'm going to look at the class. I'm going to tell them that professor is wrong, that there is a God. He's a real God. He's alive." And she said, "No." She said, "That will cause you to get kicked out of class. You'll be in the Springfield News and Leader. As a state rep, you're going to have a lot of problems, even though you're right."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't want to. I don't participate with that guy. I don't want to participate. I'm not going. You've convinced me. I'm not going. So I got my money back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Cliff Smart is a great president of Missouri State. So, hey, I'm a donor of Missouri State. I'm not knocking their school. I'm just knocking some of their professors, because if even if you didn't believe in God, you should not be trying to indoctrinate those young people. You want to
Mm-hmm.
teach accurately and fairly the different religions, and let somebody decide whether they want to be a Christian or not. But
Right.
to make sure that young person is not a Christian, if they've never had any training at home and their parents never took them to church
Mm-hmm.
when they were growing up, they're apt to believe that guy.
Right.
And that's not good. So,
And you have to watch the higher education places anyway. There's too much teaching of socialist tendencies. They want us all to be socialists. And socialism is just the first step to communism.
yeah, it won't work. I've been to Cuba. We went on a government trip, and I've been over several countries, and I will guarantee you that when you talk to a Cuban that's been over there for many, many years, they all want to come to America.
Mm-hmm.
We went to a farm, so we talked to the farmer, and he can only have like 3 cows. He can have like 2 or 3 chickens, but they would take his crops, and then he would get 10%.
Mm-hmm.
But he winked at me and said, "But I get another 10 or 15%. And I thought, good for you. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, if they knew that, he'd probably be dead today.
Right. Or in some
But
prison someplace.
and then I talked to people at the cigar factories because that's their number one export.
Right.
So it's very important. Those cigars, people want Cuban cigars. I never tried one, but I mean, they sell a lot of them and all over the world. And so these guys that are good rollers, I talked to the number one guy that's the number one roller. He rolls more cigars every day than anyone else. And he's highly paid. His dad was a doctor. He wanted to be a doctor, but he didn't test high enough to be a doctor. And they needed this cigar roller, so they put him there. He didn't like it at first, but now he's gotten used to it because he makes good money. He makes more money than his dad does as a doctor over in Cuba, because the government will plug you in where they need you.
Right.
And so, yes, it was free education,
Yeah.
but what's free if you don't get to be what you want to be?
Yeah. And that's what they're trying to do to our children here in the schools in the United States now.
Sure. And you talked about socialism, and it did first start in the universities. And Marxism and socialism, it all started higher up. And then it has oozed its way in to high school, then junior high school. And I would just tell you right now, it's in elementary schools in many, many places.
Right.
And it's a sad thing. I think it can still be reversed. We have a lot of parents now. I think COVID really helped educate and open the eyes of parents and grandparents, because when the kids were at home and they were studying at home on the computers and laptops and things like that, they started seeing some of the things that were being taught and what wasn't being taught. And so when school started back again, you started seeing some very active parents. They'd say, libraries, I don't like those books that you're encouraging my child to get. I don't like this, what you're teaching my child in history. So all of a sudden, throughout the country, and we're talking about Missouri, they have a lot of parents that are going to school board meetings, trying to get new school board members in, a little bit different thinking. And it's, I think it's a good thing.
I think the thinking these days are most parents are trying to get them back to what was actual truth and biblical understanding.
Right.
They've tried to throw that out of school, and our nation is going to crash if we don't do it.
Obviously, we have taken God out of most everything, most every aspect of life. And as we did that, you can just see it can be documented every time that as God was pushed aside, we have gone downhill.
Correct.
It is a slope that's downhill that hadn't, like the stock market has ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. I would say the heart of our nation is for a long time up, and now it's going down, and we don't have any ups and downs. And so we have got to take a stand. It's still not too late throughout this country to take back our lives, take back our families, take back our schools, take back our businesses, take back everything. But you got to put God back in everything.
Correct.
And I still believe that I'm enough of an optimist. I'm also now, as I get older, I'm a realist. I realize that some things aren't as easy. They're not as possible. So don't sugarcoat everything. Don't be so optimistic that you fool yourself. You've got to work at it. You've got to really get people together, and in numbers, I think we can make some difference.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think individually you can try, but I think when you put numbers to it and you get a bunch of interested parents, and grandparents. I always tell people grandparents have no rights. I tried to work on a couple of bills in Jefferson City as a state rep, because I realized that as I had 6 grandkids, not that I really needed it, but I heard so many stories about grandparents not getting to see their grandkids for whatever reason. Maybe there's a divorce in the family, or somebody got mad at somebody else, and then they wouldn't let you see the grandkids. Well, and I think the grandkids need their grandparents
Yes.
as they grow up, just as they need their parents, and they need two parents. They don't need just one parent.
Right.
I've seen one of my daughters. Unfortunately, she's been divorced twice, and like a lot of people out there, and unfortunately, with three children, and one of them that's a special needs child had no dad, and she's got three girls. Every family needs a dad. And so, the government for a long time, they still do it today. They try to divide families.
Right.
So they don't want the nuclear family like it's supposed to be. God created man and woman, and that's a mom and dad, and the children, that's a family. That's a unit. And today, many times when people have financial troubles, and they say, well, you can get on Medicaid. Oh, well, you know what? You have too much income, but now if you'll divorce,
Right.
you can both get money and have money for your kids. They recommend, they're telling you, they're advising you, that's the government, to get a divorce.
Yep. They do that with elder people too.
Yeah.
So
So
you can't afford to go to the nursing home, so divorce, and you can get nursing home care.
right. So one of the things that while we're saying that, elder law attorneys, at first, say 10 years ago, you didn't really hear of that too much. But now as the population continues to age, and so the seniors, there's more seniors out there, and they need more advice, more help. And one of the things I always recommend to people is find a good elder law attorney, someone who specializes in legal matters for seniors. Not that other attorneys around can't do something, but I really would trust and recommend. I know several in my area, in the Ozark-Nixa area, that are really good elder law attorneys. I've had them on my shows. I've talked to them. I've gotten great recommendations from other people, and so when we talk about those type of matters for seniors, elder law attorneys is where you want to go to.
Yep. I was a manager and paralegal for almost 30 years with the same attorney. And we did elder law and probate and special needs trust for those
Right.
disabled children. And it's one of those things I've advocated for years. It's like, no, don't let the probate court in your life.
Right.
Don't let the divorce court in your life.
Right.
And, figure out how to do what's best for your family and still stand firm with the Lord.
Right.
And we managed to accomplish that.
Right.
I was quite proud of it.
Yeah. Well, being a paralegal, I mean, that's another good occupation that is out there, that people, you can make good money, and you are doing a very important job. And so, that's another good thing.
It's what I did for years. I did court
Yeah.
transcribing before
Yeah.
that, but then I went to being
Yeah.
a paralegal, and, I was there forever. I kept saying that, it was my law firm.
Yeah. Well, you were as important as the lawyer, because obviously they can't do all the stuff that you do, and they don't have the time to do all that. And you're an important part of the law firm.
Yeah. So I taught attorneys and paralegals and judges and insurance agents, and wrote a
Yeah.
few books then and
Yeah.
so forth. So it was something very near and dear to my heart.
How many books have you written?
Most of them have been course materials. I've written 6 of them
Wow.
on elder law and probate and things of that nature. So
That's great.
I've been working on a couple of other books. I just can't get myself to finish them for some reason.
Well, you will in God's time. I've been writing a book. I don't even know if I ever get it published or not. Time's getting away from me on why I wanted to write it, and the memory starts to fade. But I was wanting to write a book about my 8 years in state government. I saw a lot of things I didn't like. I saw things I liked too. So my book was basically going to be called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of State Government. And now I had Republicans in my caucus that once they found out, like the Speaker of the House or somebody found out that I could potentially write something negative about them, oh man, they didn't like that. Some people threatened lawsuits. They did this and that. But I mean, the book that I was writing was based on facts, and I had all the documents. I don't know what happened, Ladena, the very first night that I was up in Jefferson City. When I first started up in Jefferson City, I was so nervous and so excited about my first day in session the following morning that I couldn't sleep. I went to bed probably before 9 o'clock in this hotel. I go to bed early because I have to get up early and I'm going to start my day, first day. And so I couldn't sleep. You know, have you ever just
Yep.
laid in bed and you look and now it's an hour later, and then you look and it's an hour
And
later.
your head's still running around.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now it's later than I normally go to sleep. What's wrong with me? I got up, and this I think has to be God, because I got up and started writing down what I did on my first day before the first day of session. We had meetings and orientation and stuff like that. And the Speaker of the House told our caucus that not to make friends with the Democrats, not to help them with any bills. Just everything was negative towards that. And so somehow there were about 5 or 6 of us in our 60s that was there together, first term elected. And it was interesting. We became very good friends, us 6 people. And yeah, we were friends with the other people too, but we had a nucleus because of our age. And they asked me what I was going to do. They said, "What do you think?" I don't know why they chose me to be the spokesperson, but they said, "Lynn, what do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, come 30 minutes early tomorrow, and I'll show you." So I had gone back to my office, and I had the best legislative assistant anyone could have, so I said, "Hey, and have I got business cards yet?" She said, "They just came in." And I said, "Great." I said, "I need 40 or 50 of them." And so she got me 50 rubber banded together. There was 42 Democrats. The rest of everybody was Republican. So we had a super majority. And I went that morning, and it was interesting because I handed a card to people and extended my hand. And I told them, "This is my first day here. I'm new, but I want to be friends and I want to work with you." And I said, "I'm not going to tell you that we're going to agree on everything, but we're going to agree on enough things that will make a difference in the state of Missouri."
Right.
That's what I told them very first day. It was interesting because some people made eye contact with me and listened to the entire thing. I didn't speak more than 30, 45 seconds, but some people looked at me. Some people looked down. Some people shook my hands. Some people wouldn't shake my hands. Some people wouldn't take my card. Most of them took my card. And what was interesting, over time, I proved that, yes, I could be an ally for them and still be strong on my party. I was able to teach people to compromise instead of always wanting a victory with everything. That I taught people how to let someone else win something. No one wants to go out the door and lose everything.
Right.
What kind of attitude are they going to have the next morning? Are they going to work with you, or are they going to be against you? And so I taught people how to do that. Interesting enough, Ladena, the young people in their 30s up there that had been elected or have worked in different offices, they would call me weak. And they would say that is a sign of weakness. And I would say, "No, I said, you're absolutely wrong. It's a sign of strength."
It is.
And I said, "It's a sign of wisdom and maturity." I said, "Compromise is good. It's not weakness." So I believe, because I passed a lot of bills up there and co-sponsored a lot of bills, I really believe that I taught people that compromise was okay.
Hmm.
because that's what you see right now in Congress, where they don't get much done
No.
because they
Once
don't.
I can't remember the last time they got anything done that wasn't destroying the country.
Right, right. So, right. So, I mean, the problem is if you can't sit across the table and listen and share ideas and let somebody win something,
Hmm.
let's work for the people. I don't know what we have, 330 million people in this country or something like that, over 300 million. Why don't we work for the people instead of working for ourselves? I have a feeling in Congress, most of the people are working for themselves,
Hmm.
and they have forgotten who put them there. And you
They're
know,
making too much money on what they invested
oh
in.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, Jim Whining and we did a little video, and one of the things is my idea is trying to figure out how to make our government better.
Hmm.
I said, well, why don't we just keep them at their home? Have them have their office at their home and stay in the district and work the district and help people.
Hmm.
So they're there, okay? And then only go to DC every once in a while instead of flying back and forth, spending all that money because we know that's expensive. And
Right.
then we got to put them up in DC, and they have an office up there and a hotel room up there the whole time. I mean, so we could really reduce costs
Hmm.
and
We can get rid of a lot of that
because
debt we've got
everything you can
going
do,
on.
everything you can do online now. And so
Right.
you can internet, they could vote. They could vote internet. They could hold committee meetings internet. They could do all kinds of things. And I believe our country would be much better off
Hmm.
if we would function that way. And maybe someday they'll do that. I mean, and someday maybe they'll get wise and have federal term limits. I believe that term limits is also a key element if we want to try to make our government ever
Yeah.
better and more responsive.
You know,
So,
if the internet classrooms and so forth are good enough for our kids during a pandemic,
yeah,
there's no reason not to be able to use Congress in the same
sure.
fashion.
And I think that there's ways that they could really make sure that it's effective and very productive. And so I hope someday, and I pray someday that will happen.
Hmm.
That will happen. We'll see.
Um, well, I'd like to see it. I know that for sure. No, we came in here to talk about you, and we got off on this other subject, which is, I'd sit here and talk all day with you on those subjects. Okay, it's when I talked with myself a lot at home, and I converse myself that way.
Yeah.
It's like I have to complain about something because
Okay.
this is not the United States I grew up
Right,
in,
right.
and I'll tell you, anybody my age, slightly younger than me, whatever, even my daughter, who is almost 40, she'll tell you, I didn't grow up in this place. And,
Right,
I
right.
worry about my grandkids because
Sure.
they haven't seen anything different.
No.
So, in the meantime, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're married and you have how many children?
Three
Two?
children.
3 children?
Yeah. We have three children, two girls and a son. And I've got six grandkids. Five of them are girls, and one of them is a boy. So our family is really close. We all live close together. So even as the family was growing up, we had a lake house, and we were down there on weekends and two boats, and just spent a lot of time together as a family. And we've gone on many. I've been blessed, and we've gone on many trips. I believed when I was growing up, I didn't get to go on vacations.
Right.
My dad did. He took us my brother and I. He took us two places. We went to Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, because he had a sister that
Mm.
lived there, and then my mom had a sister that lived in Virginia, close to Washington D.C., and so we went there to see those two relatives. But we never, in all the years, we'll say 20 years of growing up at the house, we never went on any other trips. I remember as an elementary school kid, people every year they had this saying, "You're supposed to get up and tell about your vacation,
Hmm.
where you went, your
Yeah.
mom and dad and your family went." Well, I remember having to pass most of the time because we didn't go anyplace.
Hmm.
And my dad was a colonial bred salesman, and he worked long hours, and he did provide for us. But he didn't want to drive anymore. I mean, all the driving he did and trying to figure out how to park the truck and stuff like that. He would always tell my mom, and he always wanted to eat at home. He didn't want to eat out. Well, my mom wanted to eat out, and we'd like to eat out, but in a way, I mean, so we kind of did what my dad wanted to do. But I made a mind idea that if I get married, one thing I'll do is make sure I take my kids on a vacation every year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to expose them to other places. So, we went a lot of different places, Mexico, we would go to the Bahamas. We went to just different places like that, several countries. We also went to Florida, different places, several times. And we ended up buying a condo in Florida. We still have. And because I wanted to take the kids to Disney World and Epcot and all the different things in
Mm-hmm.
Florida as they were growing up. And if we had a place, we were able to keep that 3-bedroom and just enjoy and learn everything that was in Florida. But we went to Colorado, we went to different places and as a family. But one thing I did, and I would always recommend a husband and wife to do, is we also took a trip just for Janet and I.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that you have special time with your spouse, and then you have special time with your family.
Right.
Because if you don't do one of them, it's going to cause a problem. And I think if you want to have a strong marriage, you're going to make sure that you spend time with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be something I would recommend people. But a lot of things I've done in life is because I saw things that I was exposed to. For example, thank goodness my mom took my brother and I to church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
To Sunday school and church. That was at University Heights Baptist Church, right there by the Missouri State campus, that great big
Mm-hmm.
kind of white gray rock building and great big church. It's even bigger today. But I started going when I was small as a grade school student. And my dad, unfortunately, never went to church.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important that at least one person take you to church. So my mom did, and that's where I got baptized. That's where I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I did that. I belonged to RAs, or Royal Ambassadors. I did a lot of stuff through church. And so today, I always think about parenting today. There are so many parents today that don't take their kids to church. So a lot of kids have zero
exposure.
Yeah,
No exposure.
And what chance? So I know that if you involve a young person in church and you integrate that as part of their life, they're going to have a better chance to go to church after they leave the
Right.
home, and they're going to have a better chance to take their own kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's a duty. I think that's an obligation.
Right.
If you're going to be a parent, I think those are the things that you teach, the values that you teach.
Train up a child in the way he should go.
Yeah. So if you don't do that, shame on you as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on you as parents. So we tried to expose that, and now we tried to expose our grandkids to church, and because I think it's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like this Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, December 3rd, December the 4th, James River, that's where I go, is in Ozark, is having James River Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday they have 3 shows. Sunday they have 3 shows. And I call it a show, but there's definitely a message, a message about why we have Christmas, why we're celebrating Christmas. There's a real true reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a show for the entire family. So they'll have camels, and they'll have all kinds of things in there. And so the family's going to enjoy the special music. I mean, the music is awesome, but they have snow coming down, and they do all kinds of things.
Well, he's telling us we have to go.
Oh, well, it's time to go. Well, I tell you what, Ladena,
He's going to cut us off. So,
I tell you what, I appreciate you asking me to be on, and
yeah. Well, I think you have a lot that a lot of people need to hear about, and we just need to be more cognizant of what you're doing in the world. So,
well, yeah, and just reach out and be nice to someone, be kind to someone. We're helping a family that's homeless that's going to move into their little home in Springfield December the 3rd. So coming up here right soon. They've been homeless for several months through the summer, and we're helping them. It's a family of 4.
yeah,
So I teach my grandkids to do this because we rent a Fisk limousine bus, and we put our dog Toots in there, and all my grandkids will be there. My kids will be there, and we'll go to that little house,
mm-hmm.
and we'll give them things.
Reach out and help somebody.
Yeah.
Just spread some love these days because there's not enough out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for joining us this week, and I hope to see you next week.